I'm gonna be real honest with you, honey. I was one of those people who thought the uncertainty when some creators spoke about the EA buyout was suspicious. I've read and heard several times the sentence, if the deal goes through, and I genuinely thought it was a simple way to emphasize the uncertainty of the situation. But, my dear drama friend, I am afraid we will have to go through another tunnel of information about what's happening at EA. And if you're up for it, I'd love you to join me as we explore the bombshell news of how this historic buyout is starting to backfire. Before we go in, I just want to give a little disclaimer here because I feel that people should have the choice to give up mental space for certain topics, especially coming on a channel that most of the times focuses on Sims gameplay drama, you know? So just be informed that we will be discussing these topics I'll put on screen right now. And if you don't feel like now it's the time, I completely understand and respect your decision to save the video for later or even watch something else. We all need to take care of ourselves, especially in times of content overstimulation with very real topics. It's a lot. So, for the sake of clarity and transparency, which don't go anywhere, honey, because these are two keywords that we will discuss in just a second. But if this is the first time you come across moi or the channel, the Drama House channel, you may have not seen my previous videos on the topics. And even if you don't need to watch them to keep up with today's video, I just wanted to let you know, as today I won't be going into the details of what has happened so far in this. And honey, let me say this on behalf of everybody. Let me say that this was a messy, consuming, and honestly concerning buyout drama. So just for a recap, where are we today? Well, the news broke at the end of September 2025 of the public company Electronic Arts basically acting like the Little Mermaid when she signs the deal with the Witch of the Sea, swapping her voice for legs. Is EA the ingenue here? I'm not sure, and I wouldn't jump to any conclusions about this because they don't really have a cool, clean track records, if you know what I mean. I know we have stated it before, but a friendly reminder, which will turn out to be a recurring point in today's video. So, yeah. EA was laying off employees in a noticeable way, leaving hundreds of workers jobless throughout multiple waves of firing. Plus, this guy's statements on AI, which in my opinion don't even get the attention that they deserve. Quote, "For years we have talked about our games delivering experiences that are always new and different," said Wilson. "We predict that with generative AI, we will truly be able to fulfill this promise for billions of people for billions and billions of hours." Wow, I mean, billions and billions and billions of everything. And by the way, this statement, he said this right after firing around 300 people from EA's workforce. Yeah, honey, only great guys are part of this story. I know. The bar is in hell. So EA sold out for a ridiculous amount of money, exchanging their IPO for pats on the back by Donald Trump's son-in-law and the Saudi Arabian government wealth fund. Like I mentioned before, it is kind of odd to see a gigantic corporation that has been public since 1990 go private and to do it in such a way. I do have a video on the channel where I also talk about the type of buyout this deal is built on and why the buyers are considered such controversial figures. But in a nutshell, you have Jared here, who just happens to be married to Ivanka Trump and who just happens to have had long-lasting business relationships and investments with the Saudi Arabia fund when Jared was officially working for the US government and even after leaving his diplomatic position. The Saudi fund is a relevant name too, for several reasons, some of which have definitely created a backlash in the gaming communities that EA used to cater to. We're talking about human rights violation allegations reported by Amnesty International and the Human Rights Watch. And we're talking, as I've mentioned before, about investors that have been actively working their way into the gaming industry, participating in business with other big names too, like Nintendo and Ubisoft. And yes, we are talking about investors that are no strangers to EA at all, having owned considerable amounts of stocks in the company even before this deal. The deal was first whispered to the press back at the end of September and then confirmed by EA itself, with the goal of being fully effective by mid-2026. Publications called it an historical buyout, considering the amount of money we're talking about in here, and it definitely was handled as a shocking news. As we explored in other videos, this financial soap opera is also stirring voices and opinions within the little hub that is the Sims community. From the hysteria of the initial announcement to the subsequent talks of a boycott, people are talking about this. I think we can all agree on that. And many people are luckily paying attention in order to be aware and informed whenever they want to give money to EA through the Sims products, for example. One pain point, in my opinion, and I talked about this in my latest video, is that some players seem to be opposing the idea of a temporary pause on The Sims 4 purchases. Because, yeah, I mean, I know that the word boycott it seems like such a heavy word, but what we're talking about in here is something as simple as don't buy The Sims 4 new expansion packs or kits. Don't fall into their seasonal sale campaigns just to enrich your library with broken content. You know what I mean? But okay, anyways, I did see players mentioning how a boycott could potentially hurt The Sims team, who would get fired because people are complaining about the buyout in the comment section of The Sims 4 pages. I don't know, honey. I still don't see a logic in this approach. But regardless of my own opinion, I feel that we now have a piece of information that might be instrumental when it comes to the right the player base has, in my opinion, to understand what the hell is going on. So, we got here, so stay with me. Don't you dare leave now, hon. So, news broke out that the workers are now protesting the buyout through an open letter written with the support of the Communication Workers of America Union. And that's not all. Because it also seems that some US senators are requesting more information on the buyout as well. And yes, babe, I come with receipts because this is how we roll here at the Drama House. We always have the receipts, okay? So let's have a look at the statement from the CWA website. The recently proposed acquisition of Electronic Arts by the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Saudi Arabia and private equity firms, including Jared Kushner's affinity partners, will further concentrate power and wealth into the hands of a few gatekeepers while doing nothing to address the concerns of the players and workers. EA is not a struggling company with annual revenues reaching $7.5 billion and $1 billion in profit each year. EA is one of the largest video game developers and publishers in the world. EA's success has been entirely driven by tens of thousands of EA workers whose creativity, skill, and innovation made EA worth buying in the first place. Yet we, the very people who will be jeopardized as a result of this deal, were not represented at all when this buyout was negotiated or discussed. We are particularly worried about the future of our studios that are arbitrarily deemed less profitable, but whose contributions to the video game industry define EA's reputation. Since 2022, an estimated 40,000 video games workers have already lost their job due to mass layoffs at AAA and indie studios alike. As reported in Game Developer, this deal will result in EA having to finance nearly $20 billion in debt. Who will be spared? Which corners will executives cut? And what studios will be sacrificed in order for that to happen? If jobs are lost or studios are closed due to this deal, that would be a choice, not a necessity, made to pad investors' pockets, not to strengthen the company. Now listen to this part from still from the workers' letter, honey, because I think it's really telling and it's really important in the context of our conversation today. Every time private equity or billionaire investors take a studio private, workers lose visibility, transparency, and power. Decisions that shape our job, our art, and our futures are made behind closed doors by executives who have never written a line of code, built worlds, or supported live services. We are calling on regulators and elected officials to scrutinize this deal and ensure that any path forward protects jobs, preserves creative freedom, and keeps decisions making accountable to the workers who make EA successful. I mean, wow. First of all, I feel this statement is really powerful and brave, in my opinion, because they are introducing the reason for their concern and call for action to the potential risk of losing their jobs, which is a fair reason on its own. But they also bring a bigger conversation to the table, which is, in my opinion, one of the reasons why being aware this is happening is important. Because I feel that what we're seeing goes beyond The Sims, even beyond EA as a company. I personally love how this statement mentions how ridiculous it is to have people with no experience in the world of video games making fundamental decisions for the future of a whole industry. And honestly, once again, this brings to light a bigger phenomenon that has been spreading throughout multiple companies within the broader entertainment business. How creative processes that require time, that require energy, money, get reduced to their bare skeleton as higher-ups demand cuts and changes with the only purpose of raising the profit and lowering the cost. As I mentioned, the call for action the union made in their statement was picked up by U.S. Senator Richard Blumenthal and Elizabeth Warren, who expressed, quote, profound concern about the potential national security risks posed by the deal. And their reactions clearly echoed the sentiment expressed in the union's letter we read before, highlighting the most controversial points that should not go under the radar. Yes, it is a layered and nuanced issue, especially because there are many gray areas, and in my opinion, these gray areas should be looked at by elected officials, and especially when the call comes from inside the house. So, honey, let's have a look at the main areas of concern that were brought up by the senators and that also take in consideration what the employees gathered in their statement. The first and most apparent point, in my opinion, and actually maybe the one that might have a little bit more room for investigation, is of course the money. The senators note that the $55 billion, it's even unthinkable of as an amount, to be honest. But the senators noted that this is far above EA's trading value, raising the question, why paying such a premium? If it's not a pure financial play, what else could it be buying? Access, influence, or maybe even a foothold in culture, which of course it is. Obviously it's not simple, pure financial play. There are some stuff in the background, as we also have already explored before. But then we have the second question, which is on data access and privacy. As we know, EA collects massive amounts of user data across its games. So the senators warned that if the acquirers gain control, that data could be exposed to foreign actors or used in ways that, threaten privacy or even to be repurposed for strategic influence. In short, as we probably all already know, data is more than just numbers, it's actual power. The next point, which was also brought up by the workers' statement, has to do with censorship and cultural steering. The worry here is cultural influence. EA shapes stories and experiences consumed worldwide. An owner with authoritarian ties could seek to shape narratives, suppress criticism, or even influence which stories get told, either directly or through pressure on leadership. That's why creative control is a core concern raised by workers and lawmakers alike. And look, on this point, there is something that I want to say. Even if you're part of those charming, lovely folks that even sometimes spawn in my comment section for some reason, and you just go there to celebrate the end of wokeness in The Sims or whatever. Like, I don't care if you pray at night that Sims came up with like a conservative simulator expansion pack or whatever. It doesn't matter, because I think that even if you have these views and you're part of that kind of community, this point about cultural influence, this should still concern you. Like, hello, the Union of the Employees is bringing this up. So this means that they possibly see how their workplace directions, and I mean, overall vibe, might take a turn to something they don't feel okay with it. And we shouldn't be waiting for one of our family members to go work at EA, come back and tell us that the vibe is super off, for us to believe that if the workers are worried about this, well, that probably means that the threat of it happening in whatever scale possible, small or big, doesn't matter. But that possibility might be a foreseeable reality for them. And it absolutely sucks. Yes. And I feel that it shouldn't be controversial or woke to admit that. It's literally human decency. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. This last point was a little bit heavy. I felt it too. But thank you if you're still here, still on board, and still watching. And honey, I'm saying this because what I'm gonna say next, it's not great either. So, the two US senators who commented on this matter, they're calling for a quote, thorough investigation of the buyout by the Committee on Foreign Investments in the United States. But, and there's a big booty over here, there's a big but, because of the political entanglement of this deal with the current US administration, that is a huge factor in the possible investigation of the buyout. The new head of the FTC, which is the US government agency that protects consumers from deceptive and unfair business practices. So the new director of this agency has already confirmed that he intends to take a way less aggressive approach to mergers such as this one compared to the person who was there before him. And this point, combined with the fact that Jared Kushner is involved in this entire deal and he's the son-in-law of the president, this entire thing, it makes the question that was brought up by the two US senators pretty valid. And the question is, what regulator is going to say no to the president's son-in-law? I know, babe, it sounds totally insane, but I guess this is the timeline we're living in. And honestly, going back to the statement from the EA's employees, I really feel that reading the statement is a very effective way to help your personal consideration of this entire EA's mess. And that's also why I appreciate the courage in speaking up for this one coming from the employees. And that's why I believe that as a community, it won't be hard for us to stand right beside the EA's employees. Because, yes, it is clear as the light of day that it's them who are definitely standing in the front line. And we all take the part of like a silent audience unless we want to do something else, play a different role. And in my opinion, it does start with staying informed, being aware of what direction a company like EA is aiming for, and then making those small decisions, which, to us, they are not life changing, right? Sure, we might feel like playing adventure awaits, but if we don't, that doesn't have like an insane clear impact on our lives. Restricting our purchases on new products is something we can all achieve. I genuinely feel that that's the most impactful way to send the message across, that we stand behind the creatives of this industry and that we want their voices to be heard. And we can also learn how to stand as one within our community. Not because we all see things in the same way, but because we care about titles like The Sims, we want to see more success for life simulation video games in the future, as we recognize what made things work in the past as well. At the same time, I do want to make it clear that I do believe authorities, regulators, lawmakers have the responsibility to investigate in order to find the transparency and the clarity that people deserve. A company is nothing without its workforce and without its customer base, and that's some real tea. And to wrap it up, my question to end today's deep dive is this. Now that we've heard and now that we know what we know from the workforce, what is our position going to be as customers?